Okay, so now what I want to do is show you how you can add a hanging device for your weaving. And so with this one here, I use that same technique above that I just showed you with that other weaving, where I tied it off. One side I looped around the front and then kind of tied it in the back and then tucked them down below. And you know what I could do is go back and snip these off, clean that up a little bit, but I figured it was good to keep it there so that you could see as well. And so it's basically just tucked under in a few places. And this one has that clean finish where it's coming up from below so that it has that clean finish there. With these ones, what I have here are these ends that are made using a different technique. What I can do is show you this as an example in a future video. But basically it happens in the process of when you're adding in your first row of weft, then you're going to add these knots on top and then continue with building your weft. And so as you can see here too, this is another example where I used my pomegranate yarn for this project. And then the purples, I don't believe I natural dyed with this because this is not, so this is probably not natural dyed. This could be here. So this purple could be a variation of a few different color stories. With this one here, this is natural dye. The back here is probably a, I'm not entirely sure. It's a little brighter than the pomegranate. You can see here the pomegranate is a little greener. This one most likely is from some of my plants that I grew. I grew some marigolds. And so sometimes there's a warm yellowish brown color from that, depending on the state of the marigolds. This is a indigo, and so I dyed the indigo here. And then I also did a few baths that were of indigo that were a little lighter. And so these here too, this could potentially be some of the indigo that is dyed with the alpaca. A friend of mine did some alpaca yarn, and so I carded it and spun it. And so this is these funky spun little legs with that. And this is pokeberry. So the red on this is a pokeberry. That's a plant here that's a poisonous plant, but it makes a really fun pinkish red color. This will last longer with wool, but anything cotton, it's just gonna kind of disappear with. Okay, so what we're gonna do is you want to have a stick that is, about the length of it. Maybe this is a little too long for it. This one has a better finish. So what I would probably do is go and cut this first before I put it on, but I might just leave it as is with this because this one has kind of a nice look and it's a little bigger too. So this one here is using an actual stick that I used. Then I created a fun band for it there. And with this one, this hot pink, I don't know how much I like with it. And you can see it a little bit through some of these. This was a weaving that I did a little bit of tying up in the back, but it's a thread that is not the same color as these. So I think I was pretty loose with it, and it still has some gaps. So I think what I'm going to do is go back with a golden colored thread and just kind of tidy that up a little bit more. This one looks a lot better because I either use, you can see a pink, I used a pink thread, and that just makes that nice and solid. And so this is something for my tapestry people. This is going to be something that we're going to be exploring here with this. Okay, so basically what I want to do is I'm going to start in the middle. So you can always find the middle by folding over, and then you find your middle point there. And I'm going to try and center this as well. I'm going to do my first loop, but I want it so that the tie is in the back. And I'm just going to do one for now. And before I tie too much of these, what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate the front and the back. That'll just make it easier as I go along. So I'm basically just deciding which one's front, which one's back. And with this at 3, what I'll do is just one in front and 2 in the back. And this may have been easier to do before I put this one on. So you can do it either way. So now what I might do is just double knot it, because I know I will want a double knot there, because I don't want that to come apart, but that's in the back. Now I'm going to go every other, switch back and forth each side. I'm starting in the middle. Go on the other side now, do the same thing. So I wanted to share some of my naturally dyed yarns and some of my hand spun yarns. So some of this is some of my first hand spun yarns. This is a daffodil or dandelion yarn that I had spun. I went camping. I picked some dandelions and basically made a little pot and heated that up and was able to get a lovely yellow. This is more of my indigo. You can see here, this is on some regular yarn. This is some that I hand spun and played around with different thicknesses and approaches with that. And then I mixed some alpaca and some wool together for this one. And so there's some nice different color variations between some browns, some lighter tones of blue and darker blue. But what I was looking for was something that I could use that would match something below so that I could hang it with above. I kind of like to have that match with that. And I feel like this pink is so intense that what I might do is add some of this pink and go back in and do a little bit of maybe some faux areas of color with it, because I feel like it's such a difference between that and these that that might be a way to help balance with that. So I'm going to take a piece here. Take off my little bead, add that back in. So once again, you find your middle point, by folding it in half. And I'm going to tie it towards the back. And what I'm going to do too is I'm going to tie those little pink strands into the back. I'm going to just hide them into the weaving like I did the other one. And so depending on how tall I want, that could also influence. So I don't want it too tall because I want the proportion of this to kind of match this. So I'm kind of pull it a little bit. So you can kind of test it out and kind of see whether or not a shorter one or a taller one works better. And I kind of like it like this actually, because then it takes you down here. It has almost like a house feel to it, like a roof of a house. And you definitely want to make sure these knots are really tight because this is going to hold everything up. So I'm just going to clip. Grab some of that pink. And before you even do anything, what you can do is lay it across. Yeah, and I think that'll be okay with that. So I'm going to use my same tapestry needle. And with yarn and these, it's helpful to fold your yarn over, slip it in, especially if it's really thick. That'll make a difference. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go between the two colors. I'm going to go up, and what I want to do is make sure I've got, it's like 3 times over. That'll be good. So I'm going to go over and under, and I'm just seeing what that looks like, if it does even appear. Maybe I'll do 2 of these so that you're able to see it. You know what? I'm gonna take this out. I'm gonna leave a tail, so I'll tuck that back in. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go under each strand and back over it. So I'm going under and back over. I'm kind of thinking more of kind of like embroidery at this point, because what this does is it's going to make that pink stand out even more. Going under, over, down, and come back up on the other side. I'm only doing this just because of that bright pink. I didn't really like it the way it looked without it being anywhere else. So if I go back, it'll make a nice little rib of color there. And this pink being right next to this more mauvey red will add a nice look to that as well. A little bit of like a highlight pink next to that. I missed one. What I'll do is I'll just go back. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of smush those together there. Little area where there's two. All right. Okay, I like that better. And two, what I want to do is clean this up a bit. And what you can do is use a ruler. And basically you can use scissors for this, but what you want to do is make sure that this is pretty close together. And if you look here, you'll line it up at a point there, and you can cut it across. Or I might do a little bit of a shape. So when I'm doing something like this, I want to make sure that I have this